Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I am Will Deamport, and this interview with Dr. Zhang will be for Schoology Exchange. And today, we will be talking about how to craft one's digital footprint. And the reason I wanted to have this discussion with Dr. Along with her expertise in this area, is because, so many of us are online now, whether it's our smartphones, our computers, or our tablets. And I think it's important for people to understand their digital footprint, what it is, and how that impression that one will give off will impact their lives or their career in some form or fashion. So, Dr. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hey, thank you so much for having me again. I'm so excited and so honored to be here. Yes, my name is I'm an associate professor at Stockton University. I teach public relations, communication, social media classes, and I'm also an independent consultant. I help people and educators specifically to learn how to incorporate social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, into their classes as pedagogical tools.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you again for joining me. So some people hear digital footprint and may not know what that means. So will you please speak to exactly what someone's digital footprint is?
Yes, I think digital footprint is like your personal ID. Like when you go to a country, you need your passport. So I think that's how I think about our digital footprint. It's our resume. It is our ID for us to go to places, for us to get to know who we are. And it is for our existence. If you don't have any digital footprint, you don't exist at all. I always say this: if Google couldn't find you, you don't exist, and people couldn't find you. And so having a digital footprint, it is so important. And what's even more important than that is that you, like us, we need to be actively building and constructing our own digital footprint so that we want to tell the stories that we want the story to unfold, as opposed to having some other random people tell our own stories. Yes.
Yes. And, I'm 44, and I grew up in an era where this simply did not exist. Mm-hmm. And, like everyone, I've done some things that you do in your youth, and it can blow over. You grow up, you learn from it. But now, because of digital, those mistakes stay and they carry on.
Absolutely.
So how important, I guess, is it or how does one begin to build their digital footprint?
Yes, I'm 38, by the way, so I really understand this generation. I didn't grow up with technology. And I think regarding the comment you made earlier, like if someone made some mistakes, I think this shows or like something that you posted online that you are now supposed to be posting, is to just keep producing like good content to counterbalance the negative damage of those earlier content. But anyway, to get started to create your digital footprint, I think the number one thing people need to think about is to understand your why. Why, like, what is the end goal that you want to achieve as a result of having a digital footprint? Like I made the mistake myself when I just started my social media journey. I was all over the place and I was posting random content. And I have a digital footprint, but it is now strong, it is now cohesive, and people still don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, here is a baby picture, there is what I eat today, whatever. But so I think the first step is to really understand your why. Why do you want to be on social media? What is your career? What is your business goal? What is the field that you want to establish yourself as the go-to person? And I think you need to do those things first before you start creating content, before you start building your digital footprint. And once you see the big picture, the big why, and the end goal, and then from there you start to strategize your content, have a content calendar, and be like strategically at a few social media platforms, and then create content, be patient, and be consistent. But the first is you really have to see the forest. Otherwise, you'll be lost in the trees.
Excellent. So I'm glad you just brought up about being strategic in the social media, social networking outlets that you actually participate in, because I know that, I've done these trainings with teachers. And when I talk about things, the first thing they get overwhelmed because they feel like, wow, I have to be on everything. And that really, isn't the case, because first, you don't want to get on a platform that is not going to fit sort of your temperament and your personality, because each site has its own rhythm along with it. And secondly, you want to be able to, as you said, produce content or be engaging on a regular basis. So what is your advice to those individuals who may see this video on Schoology Exchange and they're thinking, okay, I'm on social media, but I'm not really there, or now it's time for me to get there. But because there's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Reddit, and a whole host of other sites, they don't know where to begin. So,
and not to mention those social media platforms, they change on a daily basis. Like, for example, today, I really love, and I want to give them a shout out, Social Media Examiner. And I follow them all the time. And they have a Friday weekly show. I watch them. And so the show is they give people an update on social media within the past 7 days. And so I just watched the show today. And on average, they have about like 20 updates on social media, like within 7 days. And that is just a lot. It is hard for social media professionals to keep up, let alone people like us, educators, professors. We have a full-time job, we have research, we have teaching, we have service. So I totally understand where those people come from. And I think thinking about my own journey and looking at other people, and I really want to tell those people that you don't have to be all over the place. And I don't even recommend that. And just choose one, like all of us. I think it is safe to say that most people are on some sort of social media platform. So choose one that you feel most comfortable with and just go from there. Like when I started my social media journey 3 years ago, I started with Twitter. That's my only social media platform. And I just dive into Twitter for about 3 months to learn everything about Twitter and to be really active, participate in chats, things like that. And then slowly I added like Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook. Not that I don't use them before, but I approach them a lot more strategically and more conscious of my content creation. But I start with only one. So the key is you have to get started, because I notice the longer you wait, the harder it seems it's like too much to even get started. So the harder you wait, the harder it is going to be started. Just choose one and go from there and slowly be more comfortable. You don't have to host a Facebook live show right away, but like start with this Twitter, whatever you can do behind the stage or even blogging. Start to produce content and start to share your message, and I think that's my number one recommendation. Yeah.
And you just mentioned content, and what's so important about you producing content is because, things like SEO and the algorithms that come up, when your name comes up, when people say, okay, they Google Will D'Amport, Dr. Will, there's content that other people would have put out there. So if I were interviewed by a local radio station or my school district put out something, or even, some friends of mine, we go somewhere and they post some pictures of something, that stuff comes up, which is why I think it is important for you as an individual to start producing content so that you start to craft the message
exactly
that you want
Exactly.
people to have or get from you once they Google you. So I would like for you to speak to that importance of actually producing that content to actually create the narrative of who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yes, I think this is so important. As I mentioned, you mentioned this, and if you don't create content for yourself, other people are going to tell stories about you and for you. And I don't like that, you know. And I think we need to be more proactive at producing our personal stories and sharing our journey and even documenting. And I think for me, in terms of content creation, I used to follow like the 80-20% rule, which means that I spend 80% of my time like creating content and 20% of time like just sharing and marketing my content. But yesterday I listened to a really good podcast, and this person is a really famous and established blogger, and she shared that she spent about only 20% of her time actually creating content and 80% of her time promoting and repurposing her content. That was so eye-opening for me to hear, and also shows like how much digital noise is already there. You know, I think especially as educators, we are not used to like promoting ourselves or marketing our content. At least for me, I used to think when I have a piece of content there and people are just going to come to me and check out my content, it is not going to be the case. So definitely like educate yourself and spending time like creating content and spending maybe even more time and researching your audience and understanding what your audience wants and creating content to solve their problem, to make their lives easier, and market to those people and reach out to them. And Facebook ads is a great tool to do that, to reach out to your specific target audience. But yeah, like creation and promotion are equally important.
So another thing that I want to point out for those who will be watching this on Schoology Exchange is the importance of, because we're talking about how you are living your life online, but it's now more important of how you live your life offline. Because if anyone on TV, they have this thing called the hot mic, where you don't know your microphone is on. So you can be talking about anything. That's and right. People have, you know, there's all kind of stuff you've heard. But now, because so many people have a smartphone, it's important for you to be aware of your surroundings and how you carry yourself in public, because you never know when someone can take that picture and tweet that out or put that on Facebook, and you had no idea that that picture was even out there until you show up for a job interview. And it's like, oh, well, can you explain this in Cabo? And you're like, what? You know, and so that's one of my tips of telling people is also be aware of how you live your life offline, because that can then become a part of your online life.
Absolutely. I just tell my students, and I also remind myself, everything is public. Nothing is private anymore. We don't have a private life. As you mentioned, random people on the street can take pictures of you. Like even when I teach classes, and my students can take pictures of me, especially I use Snapchat in my classes. My students constantly snap me and post on their Snapchats. And so like you just need to be very careful about what you say and how you present yourself and how you carry yourself. I think this makes like ethics and social responsibility, etiquette, all those very, very important topics and things that we need to educate our students to tell them. But to really educate our students, we as educators, we need to walk the talk first. You know, like I feel like everything has come to a full circle right now. And like unless we embrace this, otherwise we can't really show our students, you know, what it means to have a digital life and the online and offline life. And we need to walk the talk, be the example, and educate our students and have open discussions on those topics. I mean, like cybersecurity, internet. Like recently I have someone on my Facebook live show. She is an expert at cybersecurity, and she shared so many great examples with us. Like, for example, all of us, we need to change our password every 6 months, things like that. Just be really careful. Like nothing, even on Snapchat, it seems to be private. People can still take screenshots. Nothing is private, even in your private life.
Excellent, excellent. So, which is again why I think it is so important for us to think about crafting our digital footprint,
Exactly.
because as you
Exactly.
mentioned earlier, if we don't do it, someone else will.
Absolutely.
And so we need to take ownership of what we put out there to establish the narrative, the storyline of who we are.
Exactly.
So before
Exactly.
before we go, can you give us some last bit tips of your do's and don'ts of actually crafting your digital footprint?
Yes, the do's definitely get started with at least one simple like social media platform. Don't wait for the perfect moment to come to craft your narrative, because there's no perfect moment, and right now it is the perfect moment. Like, just get started and choose one and start to sharing your stories. And in my personal case, the process, the journey of sharing really helps me understand my message a lot better. So your audience is going to engage with you. Your audience is going to give you feedback. It's a more like content co-creation. I think that's what I love about social media so much. It's not just yourself doing a monologue, but you are actually co-creating the content with your audience. So that's definitely my number one do. And the don'ts, and I think just be like, don't try to be all over the place. I think I spent maybe 1 year being all over the place and chasing after every single shiny object. Oh, there's a new app. I need to check it out. Oh, that is something new. I need to be there. And to the extent I was so literally so exhausted, I had no time to produce any original content. My mind, my brain is just so scattered. So definitely don't feel obligated to be everywhere. Just start with one and understand your why and be consistent and go from there. And another thing I want to share is that don't try to present yourself as Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, and just be real human being. Be authentic, be okay to share your vulnerabilities and also like the accomplishments in your life, the highlights in your life. But at the same time, don't be afraid to expose failures, mistakes, vulnerabilities. And I think doing those things make you become more relatable and more authentic, and people gravitate toward like holistic, like humans. Like, I love stories like that. So just some of my simple final comments. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you again, Dr. I, for having this conversation with me, for crafting your digital footprint for Schoology Exchange. People, enjoy. Feel free to look up Dr. I on Twitter. She's writing for Medium, and look at all of the wonderful things that she's doing in social media. Until next time, thank you.